All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Old World. I am Siontific. Thanks for joining us for another Old World community duel. This is part two of the Mojo versus Rincewind matchup, elimination matchup. Thanks again for joining us here. We are currently live. So if you're with us live, I appreciate you being here. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, please give us a like, subscribe, and join the Discord to join the conversation. An easy way to join the Discord if you own and play Old World is to hop on the main menu, look at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, and there is a link for all of the different socials there, and that should set you up with everything you need in order to join the Discord or hop on Twitter or anything else like that for the Old World community. So yeah, I'm just going to make sure that I get sent up to our friends on Discord. And we should be good to go. I think so here. Yeah, we're all set up. Okay, so Rincewind is starting his turn now. He's playing Rome. There was an early skirmish. We're on turn 56 here. If we take a look at, let's see, the power graph here, should detail when this fighting started happening. Somewhere around turn 40-ish to about turn 46-ish, give or take. There was skirmishing. And basically, Rome did a rapid expansion process. Kind of secured most of the map for themselves. They have really strong roading. That was something that Rincewind took care of pretty early. Got roads across all of his cities. Got roads down here. You see this nice long road. This river network, more roading all the way to the front line of Carthage. 2 roads splitting here. A fort set up. And he attacked Hippo Regius pretty early. So if you haven't caught up on part 1, definitely go back, check that out. A little bit of action in the first half. But yeah, in fact, this city wasn't even settled at the time. So we had a little bit of a slower expansion, surprisingly enough, from Carthage compared to Rome here. I think really demonstrating the leverage that you have if you go fast enough with Rome compared to Carthage. I think it's possible for a champ nation to match or potentially even expand Carthage. You just have to be very focused on it. But yeah, we had some interesting action. We had some launch offensives here. This city almost fell. Rincewind just barely secured the city before being pushed back. And now we have Numidians in the region that are well promoted, 6 strength Numidians. We have Axes in the region, a hero on the throne for the Carthaginians. So I suspect here there's going to be a bit of a holding pattern for Rome. There's this really interesting feature of a city site in the center of the map here, bordered on each side by a swath of marshland, and then fully protected by these mountains. What's really interesting, there's like a little secret path up here as well to cross through. So lots of interesting terrain, lots of choke points. There's just a 1-tile path here. There's just a few tiles path here, as well as the marshland again. And then even the coast, which no player really has access to at the moment. A couple of 1-tile chokes along here. So they're going to be it's going to be very difficult for either player to kind of crack into the other player's territory. Rincewind did make the attempt here, but was pushed back. So, on that note, let's look at what else is going on in the nation, right? We have decent political situation in Rome, which is pretty solid to have. We do have, as well as, this is our tech tree right here. We have navigation, we have phalanx, spoked wheel. So how close are we to 4 laws? We have 3. 3 laws, 8 cities. Relatively okay economy. We could ramp up our food production, but 50 iron, 70 stone, not too bad. 100 gold, not too bad. Getting military drill right now, which is always nice. And our science rate is 39 science per turn. So if we take a look at that, Carthage has actually been in the lead for most of the game and then took a big dip. I suspect he probably had an intelligent ruler to start. That's pretty classic these days. And then a big drop off here. But if we look at the overall input into the tree here, we have about a 300 tech point science lead in the overall tech tree. But otherwise, they're more or less even. Rome has just started taking the lead in science for the first time in the last 10 turns. So we'll see where we go from there. That should be interesting to watch out for. We do have a settler lined up in Rome. It does look like we're going to attempt to pressure to clear this interesting central site. Really, really interesting features here, especially because it's bordered by these hills. So, I mean, you don't want to stage anything here because it's all marshland. And then if your opponent gets onagers or archers up on these hills, you can't even build forts here because of the marshland. So it's both sides will have free reign to fire into this corridor, which would make this city, whoever secures it, very, very difficult to take, I think, which is super interesting. And so let's go check out the Carthage situation. Political situation in Carthage is not as great as Rome currently. We have a angry family, an upset family, and a barely cautious family. So we're going to have to get that under control. Maybe do something about our tactician pagan head here. Or maybe try to focus on Zoroastrianism. Our second in line can become a builder if we want it, which is always fun. This is one of the fun situations where Rebel Phase can really give you something nice. You basically get the opposing archetype of whatever you are on the throne, or you accept Builder. And I mean, I feel like taking Builder into Hero or Hero into Builder is just pretty solid either way you splice it, so that's always nice. The Hero on the throne is pretty much a decent enough leader in terms of combat, but we're draining our civics and we're draining our gold here. We do have a little bit of a gold deficit. Our economy is not in as great as Rome's. We have a gold deficit. We do have a little bit more food incoming, but both our iron and stone are slightly behind Rome's output. But our science is, well, it's not significantly better. I guess it just dropped, didn't it? What is our heir currently? We have a commander heir on the throne who doesn't like us. Check the dynasty. What options do we even have? Yeah, so maybe we take this stepdaughter and we legitimize her. I like that. It also looks as if we allowed our wife to take the throne, possibly in a coup or possibly at the Rising Star event. That's always fun to do. So this is actually our stepdaughter, which is cool. Interesting. Yeah, we don't really have a great dynasty in Carthage to work with, which is unfortunate. Getting sovereignty at the moment. And let's take a look at where we are in the tech tree for the Carthaginians. Do we have 4 laws? We do have 4 laws in Carthage, so elephants are on the table at some point. Oh, no culture. Well, there's culture in these 2 cities. Are there elephants in these 2 cities? No, we have elephants here, but not the culture. We have elephants here. Nope, that is an actual elephant. That's always fun. And that is an African elephant. We have an elephant here, and we do have the culture here with the stronghold, so we're good to go. We're good to go with our unique unit here, which is nice to see. Always nice to see. Rome does have a few spears, but mostly I'm looking at, well, maybe not mostly, but there are quite a bit of slingers around as well. Yeah, so our players are kind of in it for the long haul here. I think after our early conflict, I would not be surprised if this ends up being a build-up round for our players. It will be very hard, I think, for Carthage to push in and get any real leverage here. And after being swatted back, I would not be surprised if Rincewind is a little bit more cautious on his next attempt. maybe wait for a leverage point such as onagers or something. Although he can do a sizable amount of damage to these cities. However, you have spears. You really don't want to be attacking into axes now, do you? When you have spears. Or should I say when you have only spears. We do have chariot coming up in the Roman line. We have pretty much everybody building a military unit, which is interesting. I wonder if that's signaling. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that signals to me that Rincewind is good to go. Let's check out orders here. Rincewind does have an order advantage. 28 to 22 plus or minus excuse me, worker turns compared to the two of them. I think Rincewind has serfdom, but does Carthage not? No, he does have serfdom. Interesting. That is interesting. Excuse me. Forgive me. And we still see, yeah, so comparatively, right, the build queues wise, we still have a warrior coming out, which, you know, we like that. We're going to need an extra unit at some point. Power scale wise, we are both similar. And I think I already went through the military score, but if we take a peek here, we actually have a slight advantage on Carthage at the moment, just a nearly 100 more power. So Mojo is, you know, Mojo has troops. He can defend himself. And I find this interesting because only one of Mojo's queues is building a warrior, and he's actually building a settler here. So apparently he's anticipating contesting this spot. So I suspect we'll see a fight for this Central Valley, which is going to be a very, very interesting fight to have. Carthage is going to have to make sure that they don't get flanked by anything. So you're going to need to keep units here or on standby, something like these militia, to be able to move in and make sure that if you do come into this corridor to contest this site or fight battles with whomever shows up here, that you just don't leave this door open for Rome to come in and flank a bunch of your units onto these marshlands and kill everybody. It should be certainly very interesting to keep an eye out for. This African elephant is near enough to the battlefield. So yeah, this is exciting. I'm really looking forward to this. We have interesting tech options. We can do combo, monasticism. We do have Judaism on the Romans, and we have Zoroastrianism on the Carthaginians. So both players have access to their religions, or to world religions rather, not their own religions. We've seen a bit of chopping sprees, I believe, right? Yeah, there's lots of woods over here. It looks like Rome has chopped a few of them down permanently. What about the top here? Yeah, we've seen... Oh, no, I guess they still have their woods here. I'll be curious what he picks. I think combo would be fun. Monasticism could also be decent. All right, timer's on. Yeah, we don't have a fourth law yet at Rome, so either of these would be good. Maybe monasticism. Enact polytheism real quick. Pop a quick shrine in every city. And then when citizenship comes rolling around at some point, again, you grab it, enact divine rule, swap over to monotheism, and you got yourself... How many cities do we have? 16 orders? That'd be nice. The nice thing about divine rule is that it gives you orders even if you don't adopt the pagan faith as your state religion. So you can run, you can still run Judaism as your state religion, spread it everywhere. Take a moment to dip into polytheism, drop a shrine in every city, and then later on adopt divine rule while staying as a Jewish state religion. But you still get one order per city for both divine rule and monotheism. So, pretty nice synergy there. Yeah, we're seeing some garrisons get online. There's pretty much a garrison. There's one here. There's one here. So we've done... Rincewind has done a pretty solid job setting up garrisons. There's nearly a garrison in every city. Oh, excuse me. Oh, forgive me. All right, I muted the mic while going on a sneezing spree. All right, so we did grab monasticism, which is cool. That'll give it that'll be a nice long-term science play for the Romans. Our science could definitely be higher at this point. But again, there's been a lot of aggression, a lot of early action, a lot of early expansion, so it makes sense. You know, I talk about that metric of matching the science to your turn, and it's a fine metric, but also depending on what you're doing and what leverage you're trying to exert on the match, it's not always achievable. You know, you can't really spam a shitload of units and try to attack your opponent early, which is precisely what Rincewind did, while also maintaining that baseline of 1 science per turn. Sometimes you can, and it's great if it works out, but, you know, every build queue spent on something like a spear or a chariot or whatever else is not being spent on potentially boosting your science with a specialist or something like that, so... And it's the same situation over here in Carthage's side of the map. We have 33 science per turn, and pretty much for the same reason. You know, we were building up, and then we got pressured by a rapid early expansion attack from Rome, and so that forces you to divert your build queues and your resources to protecting yourself. So that's obviously is also going to set back your science, which is one of the reasons why I have mused. Again, I don't know that it's perfectly sound strategy. But it's one of the reasons why I've mused that I think the best thing you can do if you're worried about your opponent outclassing you in the science or economic game is to either play a smaller map or even in this, because what are we? We're dual ultra wide, so that's a little bit wider distance between the two players. You either play a smaller map or you establish borders quickly, right? And obviously playing a smaller map will help you establish borders quickly. And the reason for that is because, I mean, if, let's say you're Carthage right now, we're looking at the Carthage perspective, and we have the vision that we have, and let's say our army isn't even this size yet. Even if you're staring at this down, you know, we're looking at, you know, 3 spears and 4 or 5 slingers, right? So that's nearly 10 units. If all we had in this region was like maybe this axe, this slinger, a militia, a couple of barbarians that we hired, well, this is going to concern us, right? We're going to think, oh shit, even if Rincewind wasn't even attacking, right? This is the value, I think, strategically of establishing a border quickly. And it goes both ways, because you also don't want your opponent to be harassing you, right? So there's also reason to try to avoid having a border. But if you're worried that your opponent's going to best you in the economic or science game, I think it actually might be sound theory to establish a border quickly, because that's going to force them to consider their military situation and the threat of you much earlier and much more presently. And what I mean by that is going back to that comparison I was making. Let's say if we just only had a handful of units in the region and we're staring at nearly 10 units. Well, that's going to force these build queues to building more units. You know, a player who's reacting appropriately is very likely going to go, shit, I need to build an axe. I need to build a unique unit. I need to build spears. And we did see that. We did see that when Rincewind came crashing into Hippo Regius. You know, Carthage was not really where they probably should have been, or, you know, probably maybe the wrong word, but, you know, They weren't in the strongest position when Rome initially attacked, which forced them to make diversions and get into the position that they are now, where it's a little bit more even, right? And so the value of that is if you think that your opponent has a strong eco game, well, it's best to not let them sit in a corner and just play the eco game. You know, play civilization, building up their empire. Unless you're planning on massive, timing attack that you think you can pull off in the before they fully get momentum. In which case, then it's better that they don't see you coming. That's another angle too. Like if you can just careen to 8 strength units and you know you'll beat them first, well then, that's always another way you can approach it as well. That can work occasionally. I've done that once or twice in past games. My opponent had the legendary city, and they got their scholarship online, and they got all their fun goodies, and I don't even have a strong. Oh no, I have just my capital's strong, nowhere near legendary. But the other difference between the two empires is I have a bunch of mounted lancers charging into their empire, and they don't even have an 8th strength unit yet. So that it can it can work out. And in that particular game I'm thinking of, we didn't have borders for most of the map. We were both building up for most of it. But we the two players, myself and I think it was Alcaraz actually. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to blow my nose in a second. But we went in different directions. He was playing eco and building up, and I was playing 8 strength unit rush. So definitely ways to do it. But I think I think border tension creates a lot of friction, a lot of anxiety, because it's always this uncertainty, this looming threat of, especially when you can't see, right? We can see these troops, but we can't, as Carthage, we don't know if there's not another 10 units right here. So it can be very anxiety-inducing to not quite understand or know when your opponent is built up enough that they're going to engage you. This stalemate for the city site is awesome. I'd be really, really curious to see who takes the play here. I think the correct move, if I'm not mistaken here, I think the correct move strategically in this situation is to wait for the other player to move first. So I think this is a standoff and a stalemate until somebody moves in on this site. And I'm wagering, I could be 100% wrong, or maybe I could be like strategically sound in theory, but again, skill-wise, our players will prove it wrong. But I have a sneaking suspicion whoever moves in here first will actually lose the conflict. Because what will happen, or maybe not, I guess you could take a kill here pretty easily. Because basically my thinking there, alright, maybe Rome would be fine. It's like, you have to get on these tiles. Because then, whoever ends up in the marsh, standing primarily in marsh, is going to be taking 1 damage per turn for any of units. This slinger can't hit this, right? So even the range units need to step 1 tile closer to start engaging in this fight. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe if Rome swoops in, gets a couple of kills, gets some units on these urban tiles, he'll be fine. Because the urban tiles will also add defense. But I might be wrong about that. Hard to say. Certainly a puzzle, which makes it all the more exciting, right? My favorite thing about watching these matches is that so many different situations between the players present us with a puzzle, right? And we get 3 wonderful perspectives, at least 3 wonderful perspectives of that puzzle. We get to see how both players might approach an issue. So we're going to see how Rincewind tries to tackle this choke. We'll see how Mojo tries to tackle this choke, what decisions they make, what mistakes they make. Then there's also my commentary, There's the observer perspective, where, whether it's myself or Filthy or Alcaraz, we get to talk about what we might do, what we would think about in terms of whether we have perfect information or not perfect information. That's one of the reasons why I like to always make sure I have a sense of the player perspective. Like right here, I know as Rome I can see all of this stuff. So Rome actually has more information of this impending conflict than Carthage does at the moment, right? Because this is all Carthage can see. But Rome can see pretty much the entire frontier border of Carthage. So there's a little bit of an advantage there. There's a decent scouting right there, which is nice. Yeah, and then of course there's chat, right? If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, there's also the perspective of whatever anybody in chat decides to talk about or bring up or point out. Because sometimes we as observers miss stuff. And, whether it's Fluffy Bunny or anybody else, can make a comment in the chat and call our attention to something interesting and unique. All right, so what do we have going on here? We can get a zealot on the throne in the dynasty or a schemer. So it looks like we did not take the builder. We did take bidder. And where did we go? We took a zealot. That's awesome. Did we name this lady an heir? Oh, cool. And our commander died. So, all right, we have a zealot heir, which, I mean, zealots have been massively popular in this meta. Oh, okay. So this is going to answer the question. I was musing, is it whoever goes first loses, or is it whoever secures the urban tiles first wins? And now here's another interesting thing. Rome is at war with the Danes. I didn't clock this at first, but Carthage is not. So Carthage can secure a perfect position in this area without needing to worry about zone lock. Look at this. Rome can't get in here. Rome got this zone lock situation to deal with, right? There's an axe in the way. So there's actually no reason we rush out a settler here. Okay. All right. Oh, God, Mojo, show me how it's done, buddy. Oh, great. This is so wonderful. This is so wonderful. This is a wonderful matchup because I think both players are playing well. Both players, Mojo is a 4-year veteran of Old World multiplayer. He's been playing for a long time. Certainly a skilled and steady player. And Rincewind has joined the tournament, entered the multiplayer scene for the first time this year. However, he is a zealous and dedicated player who's been practicing an exceptional amount. Many players, that's one of my favorite things about the tournament is lots of players have been getting in a whole host of multiplayer games. So if you're watching this as a spectator, you're not a tournament participant, whether you're live with us now or you're watching on YouTube, really, I encourage you to join the Discord. Boot up Old World. Look at the bottom left of the screen. There's a Discord link down there. Should bring you right to the Discord. Say hello in general chat or wherever else. We have a multiplayer organization channel. We have the tournament channel. And see if anyone wants to play a game, because most of the players who have been in the tournament are always looking for practice matches. And then, of course, other spectators who, been following along the tournament. It's been really a lot of energy around this thing. So if you want to get involved, it's not too late. You won't be a competitor in the tournament, but you can certainly get involved in the multiplayer scene. And now is absolutely the time to do it. Oh, and the Danes have moved forward. So this actually now forces... I love this. Wow, kudos. All right, so I'm 100% wrong. One thing I wasn't clocking, again, about that was the war status. But yeah, I think this site might actually end up going to Mojo, which is going to be really fun. Maybe he comes up here. He can kill this with just range, so we won't need to step onto the marsh if he doesn't want to. He can bring this scout up here, fire with the scout, fire with the zealot. And, yeah, this is great. Really, really interesting puzzle. And so then if Mojo does secure this city site, even though it's a very interesting location, that will equalize the cities between both players. There are exactly 16 cities on the map. Well, not including these weird ones. So I guess that would make it 18, right? But these are going to be really, really difficult to acquire if anyone ever bothers. I don't think they're probably worth the effort. So Rome has 8 cities. Carthage has 7. This would be Carthage's 8th city if they want it. Should be very, very interesting to see how this pans out. Rome has a 33-year-old zealot on the throne. And greedy with the bone dice. So bone dice probably showed up recently. I'm going to check this power graph again. Yeah, Rome jumped up a little bit because they've been producing a lot of units. Still producing more units in some of their queues. Switch to a worker here, which is nice. Farmer in the cap. Interesting. It's a statesman capital. Let me see here. Sorry, doing some quick math. You know, sometimes I think inquiries get a bit of a bad rap. This is 120 science. Now, it's not the best rate. You know, it's 8 turns. But I talked about how if there's marble around, which... Is this marble? Yeah, it is. It can be sped up a little bit. Even at 8 turns, that's an effective science increase of 15 per turn, and when our science rate is only 40, an extra 15 science is not nothing. If you can get this even lower with a good with this guy's the best governor you're gonna get, I suppose, huh? For this. Yeah, but if you can get that a little lower to like 6 turns, I think a 6-turn inquiry 3, or maybe... Basically, my general rule of thumb for inquiries when I evaluate them is if I can get them done in under 5 turns, I generally think they're worth it. So that's always something to watch out for. We have 3 orders left, 6 seconds on the clock, so Rincewind might be struggling with the timer. Decided not to kill the Danish skirmisher. So, cool. Back to Mojo to see how he's going to handle the site this turn. His settler is ready, so I think he'll probably take another turn just to get into position. No, he's going for it now. Okay. He won't. I suspect he won't kill it right this turn. Or maybe he will. He can reach. Yeah, he can kill this. He can slinger it. I think that's enough, right? Hero, maybe? Yeah, that would do it. Just need to block this off 1 second. And then make sure the settler will be able to force march next turn. Yeah, good job, Mojo. I thought this was going to be a bit of a standoff, but... no, kudos to him. What's interesting here as well is that, you know, Mojo rushed out that settler. That was like a 6 or 7 turn settler about a turn ago. And, he rushed it out. Question from the chat. What's the Cav Siege tech layout? So for Carthage, we do have our 6-strength unit, our routing elephant. So no spoked wheel, probably don't necessarily need it, but it can come in handy because the thing that's better about the chariots compared to the elephants is that the chariots can still ignore zone of control. But we do have a router. We have sovereignty, no machinery. So we're getting comp bow at the moment, so we'll get a free ballista at some point, and we'll get some archers, which would be nice. Over on the Roman side of things, We do not have rhetoric. We do not have sovereignty, so we're nowhere near machinery. But we do have spoke to wheel, and we are building a chariot. I don't know if we have any currently. We know this will be our first chariot. So we have some routers on both sides. The Carthaginian routers are slightly stronger, but the Roman routers will be more mobile and sticky. Not sticky. The opposite of that. Fluid? I don't know. They'll be able to get through zone of control, is basically what I'm trying to say. And now they actually move faster. So the other thing that sucks about elephants is that they don't have the same move speed as a chariot either. Right? I believe that's correct. Three moves per order. Yeah. And then yeah, it's the movement. Yeah. Elephants only move 2 moves per order. So the elephants are actually slower than chariots. So chariots are more mobile. Very easy. And I think this tournament has been displaying that quite a lot. Even I myself had really undervalued chariots because the thinking, which is true and which is kind of true and sound, is that spears just shut them down so hard. However, I think the most successful battles we've been seeing in this tournament have been from armies that have a diversified mixed composition, where they're not cutting out spears, or they're not cutting out chariots, or they're not cutting out ranged units. I feel like if you cut out any one of the major things, then you start to struggle against an opponent who has a diversified unit set. And I think that's really freaking cool. I think it really speaks to the value, the strategic value, and just the design of this game. That, like, having different unit types, even if you see your opponent with like 6 spears in the battlefield, it can still be valuable to build yourself 2 or 3 chariots, because you never know when a moment or an opportunity or a hole in the line is going to open up, and then suddenly you go from being able to score 1 or 2 kills in a round to being able to score 3 or 4, and that can make all the difference. It can make all the difference in the world. And then the same thing is in the reverse with the spear. It's like you don't want to neglect spears all game, because next thing you know, your opponent could build something as simple as 3 or 4 chariots, and those 3 or 4 chariots are going to secure, 3 to 6 kill route chain on you. And again, that 1 or 2 of those are enough to win a fight. So combined arms is really a wonderful aspect of military tactics and planning, I think. Which is just really cool. Building some disciples now. Spears finishing up. Let's see where we're at in the power now. Maybe that updates next turn. I think we're still on the turn, where I checked last time. What would I say is the legs to a balanced comp? Well, for starters, I really think it's just an abysmal idea to fight any battle without ranged. Even if your ranged units are just slingers. Like, it's having been there before. I think one of the earliest mistakes you can make in multiplayer when you start fighting, especially if you start fighting early, is starting with like Egypt, or starting with Greece or Rome. Anybody who starts ironworking and basically forgetting to get trapping. And then the reverse is, I think, less as impactful, but can still be true depending on things like terrain, but starting with trapping and forgetting ironworking. So ranged versus melee is the first biggest one in terms of a balanced comp, and specifically ranged. I just don't think anybody should ever, because if we think about the way damage is distributed, right? How many times, let's take a look at this, right? Right there. Perfect example. How many times do we get one unit down to 3, 2, or 1 health left, right? So if you're in boxed an area like this, and this is your last attack, and you're already attacked with everybody else, right? Well, then your only option at that point is to come up with a ranged unit from behind to secure that kill if you really need to secure that kill. So ranged is, I think, the #1 most crucial thing to have in an army composition. More than anything. And that's where we get into the rock, paper, scissors element of it. I don't think this game has a perfect rock, paper, scissors dynamic necessarily, but... And here comes the settle, by the way, from the Carthage. So solid securing here. Really nice to see this. But yeah, so... And we've seen this in a match already, right? You know, if point #1 is get a shitload of range units because range are essential and range are crucial, well, all right, so what do we do to deal against that? Well, kill potential. If you have nothing but archers or slingers and then your opponent throws a bunch of chariots at you, that's going to be a horrible, horrible time, right? So a bunch of ranged, especially because of the mobility, right? Because chariots ignore zone of control. So if you have ranged up here on a hill or whatever, what you want to do is be able to get around and deal with the archers and, you know, make sure you can attack wherever you need, that mobility, that route, double kill route potential, things like that, right? So now we have archers, and then we have chariots saying, okay, that's what I'll bring in next, which then, all right, so what's the next step? All right, well, we don't want our chariots getting to our ranged units or getting these massive, like, look at this, all right here, this would be one route chain if we were left out in the open. Same here. This could all be a route chain, right? So what's the solution to that problem? Spears. Okay? So that brings spears. And then, you know, it kind of goes around and around from there. It's like, what deals with spears? Axes. Okay? But horses also deal with axes. So it's like this weird, you know, rock, paper, scissors thing that like never ends, because then the next question after that is like, all right, well, my opponent has a full army composition. Now what the fuck do I do? All right, well, what do you have? Siege? Do you have onagers? Do you have ballistas? Ballistas will destroy everything that we're looking at right here, with the exception of these 2 units. You know, a ballista will shred everything in the battlefield right now. So then that brings us full circle. It's all like, okay, well, now we have a shitload of siege, and that's a problem. How do we deal with that? Again, horses again. Routing again, which brings us back to spears again. So it's like, that's why I think the diverse composition is so important, is because it basically serves, especially when you think about it from the way the tech tree evolves, right? So we have 2 routable units, a 3rd routable unit, and then we have a router right here and the anti-router right here. So these 3 units all kind of counter each other. The chariot can route everything down here. The spear can stop the chariot. The axe can really mess up the spear. So there's your rock, paper, scissors right there. Then siege show up and they say, fuck you guys, we're going to kill everything, right? So then, well, shit, what do you do about that? Well, still chariots if you never brought them, which brings us back full circle into this thing. And then, you know, macemen can show up and dunk on these guys as well. Ranged are always going to be a nuisance. Mass stacked range is always tricky to deal with unless you have strong routing. Also, there's the war elephant, which can counter siege as well, because it counts as a mounted unit, and also will panic, which will severely disrupt onagers. So basically, as we progress this there's this up this tree, there is a continuous loop of this sort of quasi rock, paper, scissors thing that happens indefinitely all the way throughout the entire tree, all the way to the end. Keeps going. And it's really cool. Because I think it influences how you advance through the tree. But someone called chariots basically suicide bombers, and I think I agree with that. I think the tricky thing about a chariot is that there's no way your chariot's going to survive its route chain, almost, unless you're just straight up murdering your opponent, right? So even if you could get this route chain right here, right, you killed all these guys with a couple of chariots or whatever. It's like that those 1 or 2 chariots or whatever it is, you know, maybe you brought slingers up here. I mean, those chariots are going to be dead, especially if spears are around. But I think that's part of the point. So much of fighting battles in this game is trading kills. It doesn't matter that you're losing units. What matters is that you're making your opponent lose more. And that's why so much of the strategy around the game, and again, as we level up through the tech tree, we get kill potential, right? Because these two units just strike one unit. I would say the first advanced kill potential is the ranged unit, because you can focus fire. You know, you can get 6 units in an area that can always hit one target regardless where they're standing as long as they're in range. But then from there, what do we get? We get pierce, so you can do that 1 extra 2 or 1 damage through this, and also cleave. You can do 1 extra 1 or 2 damage adjacent to your units. And then rout, you can keep attacking. So your kill potential increases here. Then machinery, you lose your ranged penalty bonus, because all archers get the ranged penalty bonus, but these guys don't need to worry about it, so they never need to worry about getting something like Hawkeye or whatever it's called, that ranged one. They do splash damage, right? So that's another thing that's going to do an extra 1, 2, 3 damage to everything around. And they have really high range. And then the ballista. The ballista is crazy. It's pierce, 50% pierce, 3 tiles in front of it. That's crazy, right? So that's another thing that's happening as we're leveling up through the tech tree, is our, the longbow or the archer itself. The archer is a 3 range attack as opposed to the 2 range attack, right? So your focus fire potential increases, your splash potential increases, your kill potential rises along with your damage as you go through the tech tree. And that's another thing that's just really awesome about the way the game works in general. I actually think, as frustrating as the rounding errors as that I call them, trying to kill a guy and have him only, left with 1, 2, or 3 HP, as frustrating as that is, I actually think it's brilliant. Whoever came up with the combat math is a genius, because I think that those little rounding errors are precisely what enhance the tactical value of things like pierce, things like cleave, things like circle, splash damage, all that stuff, because what you then need to puzzle out, right, is how am I going to get just 1, 2, 3 extra damage onto something without spending a shitload of orders from an entire other unit walking up to that thing and taking a full damaged attack. That's the other thing. If you have a unit that can deal 8 to 10 damage, the last thing you want to do is spend that unit to attack something that has only 3 health, because it's a waste. So you try to tactically evaluate, where can I get it in my cleaves, where can I get it in my pierces or my splash damage, or get a rout or whatever else. And it's all about trying to maximize that kill potential. And that's the other reason why I think combined arms has been shut. And to be clear, I'm guilty of not doing this. I think one of the reasons why I lost my last match was I was like, I'm going to win this game with elephants and longbows. So basically 2 units. I brought in siege weapons. I brought in onagers. We're having an attack up here. Did we kill a scout from the Carthaginians? I brought in onagers, but I failed to protect them, because what did I forget? I forgot pole arms. I didn't bring any spears. So my onagers got destroyed easily. I had a couple of conscripts. That's it. I'm pretty sure I didn't even research phalanx in that match at all, so that those type of decisions come back to bite you, because having a combined force, I think, just really pays off in the long run. And so going back to the suicide bomber idea with the chariot, even if you're not going to build a massive amount of chariots, I really just think we've seen this in the tournament, having just 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, whatever, 3 to 6 chariots just hang around in case the opportunity presents itself, is such a threat. Because you can, after enough fighting, you can run into a situation where, oh, hey, look, suddenly my opponent's 8 spears, there's only 2 left. That's weird. And now what do? Your chariots move in and they fucking kill everything. And it's awesome. Sorry, forgive the tangent there. Just kind of like rambling on overall meta tactics, I suppose. Taking a peek here, we have 42 science in Rome now. Let's take a look at the science chart. Rome has taken the lead for a while now. They still have a deficit to clean up here. There's still about 200 science behind in the tree, so that gives Mojo plenty of time to rebound, stay on top of things. We're building some officers now in Rome, which is nice to see. Getting our barracks online. We have monasticism coming out soon. And I like this, by the way. You know, Rome did build this final settler to settle this site, but lost it. And rather than hanging on to the idea of maybe settling this someday, no, he just moved it right back and upgraded it into a worker and said, shit, that sucks. Too bad. Oh well, back to business. Also, it doesn't look like we built any wonders. We have the pyramids, Oracle, Hanging Gardens, Jerwan, Necropolis, Ishtar, Lighthouse, Acropolis, Colossus Museum, Circus Maxis, Heliopolis, and Colosseum. And there's no wonder progress so far, which is going to be interesting to keep an eye out on. We have plenty of civics in Rome, and we have a decent enough stone economy, so maybe we grab an early, well, it's not early, it's turned 60 now. So maybe we grab a wonder at some point. We do have strong culture, so we have up until strong. Museum can be grabbed. Ishtar could be solid, I think, maybe, although we're pretty much at developing on most of our cities. Maybe Ishtar would bridge the gap in the last couple of them. Yeah, interesting. And yes, of course, chat's pointing out that chariots are good for their mobility, covering long distances. Absolutely. I think the Roman chariot especially can be very easily to underestimate. Because look, we just built this chariot in this city. The Romans did. It can engage into this battlefield right here. You know, and that's the other thing. You need the order economy to sit back like this. I think that's another mistake that I make. I always try to be clever with my tactics and like, oh, I'm going to leave my chariots behind here. And then when I finally do get the opportunity to rush in, I realize, oh shit, it's going to cost me twice as many orders to launch this attack. But no, if you do have the order economy, really, like, you can sit stuff back in the distance where you think your opponent doesn't have vision, and you can do a wild surprise attack with it, you know, once a battle actually breaks out and units are now out of position and whatnot. So yeah, chariots are very useful. It's just annoying. It's annoying to end up having to deal with a shitload of spears because that shutdown is just so hard. You know, it's such a harsh counter. It's the damage. It does more damage to the chariot, the spear. It takes less damage than from the chariot. The chariot cannot route through the spear, right? And the spear prevents the chariot from ignoring zone of control. So that's 4 different weak points that the spear alone can flex against the chariot. But it has been demonstrated that chariots are strong enough to merit such a harsh counter. I didn't quite believe that before, but after seeing it in multiplayer, I finally get it. Oh, we have an ambition to build the pyramids or the Oracle. So if Mojo has not been paying attention to wonders, he certainly will be now. All right, well, thanks, Chase. I'm glad you appreciate the meta-analysis and rants. It's always interesting to do these, because I like doing these because I like watching the game. You know, I really love watching the players play. I love seeing how everybody tackles interesting problems, and I also love talking about the game, right? I love pointing out things that aren't easily apparent to players make or miss things, and not like the nitpicking moments, which I do nitpick, but also just the idea of, like, you know, identifying certain text path, like if somebody should push land consolidation or if they should push something else. Yeah, it can always be interesting to find the right balance between meta-analysis and also recapping what's actually happening in the game. We did go for combo as the Carthaginians. Again, I like that grab. So this should be interesting. I'll be curious to see how Mojo... What do we have for queues here? We have a trapper, we have a miner, another trapper. Okay. We We have a Francis officer. That's fine. I'll be curious to see how Mojo keeps up with the science. We still will get officers from Comp Bo, but monasticism will give Rincewind an opportunity to get a pretty smooth, flat science from his monasteries. Thanks, guys. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm sure some of you guys are at work right now or just getting home or whatever. And even if you're just listening, certainly awesome to have people in the chat. It's fun because it's like we all get to play Old World together in a way, right? We get to watch it. We get to experience the excitement and the failures and the mistakes on both sides. You know, you get to be invested in thinking like, oh, there's no way so-and-so is going to lose this match. And then they do, right? You know, the surprising moment happens, whether it's a crazy event that came out of nowhere or just an absolute misplay. And it's nice that we all get to share those moments of being like, oh, man, no way. Or, you know, continuously frustrated that Rome, Carthage, and Assyria are getting picked nonstop. That's always fun. Politics in Carthage need to get picked up, though. Like, Mojo needs to, what can we do here? Influence, I guess. That's it. Is everybody influenced? All right, so nobody's influenced. All right, so that's at least an access to 80 opinion that we have. We can influence the pagan head. That'll be 40, and then an individual influence down the line. Oh, you know what? We're probably waiting to die. Yeah, we're 77 years old. Never mind. So the thing that's tricky about this is you don't want to invest all that order, time, and resources influencing a bunch of people when you're 77 years old, because if you die, that's just going to suck, right? You will have wasted all of that. So we're probably letting this political situation hang out in anticipation of the fact that we're going to get a zealot on the throne at some point. And that does actually make complete sense. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I'm passionate. That's what it is. I'm very passionate. I'm passionate about everything I do, and I love Old World a tremendous amount. So most of my criticisms or angry rants or absolute berating of players is just born out of an immense passion for this game. But it is fun. All right, so yeah, objective secured. I mean, This is a wild map. You know what? I wouldn't. It's kind of funny because Mojo has played a few long games. I'm pretty sure his very first match was the first match to go to 4 sessions, 4 different sessions, and then his second match went to something absurd like 8 sessions. And with these choke points, man, I don't know. I don't see this reaching a resolution swiftly. I'll be really curious. I feel like now that Mojo has secured these tiles, right? This is also an advantage here because Mojo will eventually be able to replace these units with onagers. Like if I put a slinger here, I can already hit the spear, right? So once I replace these with onagers and move up and protect them, you know, I'll start to be able to do a little bit of that slight onager creep where everything in this region here is going to be susceptible to onager fire, so you kind of just have to fall back. And then, I don't know, what do? You just move forward with something, and then onager, move forward, onager, like, I don't know. This is a tight hole to squeeze through, though. Well, you know, Bullmoose, I'm going to be honest with you. You're doing fantastic. It's been a pleasure to watch you play. And I'm not going to lie. I honestly, in full honesty, I think you've done a lot better than I was expecting. Because your first match especially, I 100% thought you were going to lose that. So that was a very surprising rebound on your part. And then, Oh man, I forget who your next opponent was, but that was also a really, really good match. And I definitely think there was a window of opportunity where you could have lost that one as well. So yeah, a couple of good games that you've had and played pretty well. Everybody's been playing, for the most part, everybody's been playing pretty well. Which is nice, because we've had a lot of new players who have never really played multiplayer games before. I really think about half, if not more than half, of the tournament participants have never played multiplayer before. And while sure, there are some players where it's obvious that maybe they're not fully adapting to, you know, the meta of playing against a human. I think overwhelmingly most of our players, both through practice and interest and conversation, and also watching these streams, they're they're really giving strong showings, which is awesome to see. 3 turns on monasticism, 2 turns on another Jewish disciple. Do we have any other current Jewish disciples lying around? No, that'll be the only one that we have, which is nice, though. I mean, it will be ready in time to start building monasteries, which is nice. And it's a states one, so it can do a monastery here, it can do a monastery in the capital, and then it can do a monastery out there. So that's not too bad. We do have Judaism in several locations, not one right here yet, but for the most part, we have Judaism all over the map. Probably about half the empire at the moment, I would say. We are building more barracks around. Do you have the necropolis pinged here? No stone fort. Did we build a wonder? All right, we have a wonder. We have the museum in Roma. Really hard to see from this angle because of the city shield, but yeah. So the Romans did build the museum, which is a nice grab for them, and that's exactly what they need to... again, let's not forget, science is pretty low at this stage in the game, 42-37, but we have a slight edge to Rome, so I think grabbing the museum is something that's going to help him secure that potential science lead. That's really nice to grab. The ocean's going to be tricky to work. I mean, it's entirely possible. 100% possible, but my concern here is that, I mean, this is a one-tile strait, right? So if you can, if that gets telegraphed at all, the defender who doesn't want to get attacked literally just needs to put one ship in this location and one ship right here. Because then what you'll have is only one ship that can get attacked each turn. And you can just swap it out indefinitely. Toss a hero general on one of them, and you'll heal indefinitely too. You know, bring in a third or fourth ship. You know, this would be so hard to plow through this. And there's 2 of them, right? So I mean, I guess you could just make landfall here, but yeah, would be tricky. I mean, if someone goes for the ocean, it would certainly be interesting to see. Rome was building a byreme, yeah. Interesting, good catch. So one thing I'd like to see from Rome here is... yeah. So one thing I really like when you have a zealot on the throne, if you're not at churning out units with that zealot training, it can be very useful. We're spending what I'm surmising was about 3 turns already. So I'm guessing this is something like a 6-turn officer in Scalabus. Yeah, that would be my guess here, because the master would be 7. So 5 or 6-turn officer in this champion seat. In my opinion, just slot the apprentice officer in there, slam the rush button, and get it done in one hit. And go right back to producing units. That's my personal preference. And then, you know, when this barracks is online and you have the training set up again, and, you know, your next unit is finished, then rush an officer again. If you're not using the zealot training for a massive unit push, I like to use it for early officer setup in military cities. That way you can get fully online. This is another example, but we don't have the state religion here. Slam the rush button. But mostly on apprentices. I can't stress enough that you never want to rush an upgraded. Well, that's not true. The only things that I think are worth rushing and upgrading, generally speaking, are monks and doctors. Everything else you can kind of just ignore. For the most part, anyway. It depends. But for the most part, I think you can ignore most advanced specialists unless unless you already have access to it. So like an amphitheater allows you to build an elder poet. So okay, in that case, build an elder poet. But in an Odeon, I would say you very rarely want to upgrade from apprentice to master to elder in an Odeon. Unless your civics output is really good. My general rule, I kind of talked earlier about, an inquiry. If you can get an inquiry in 5 turns-ish or less, that's maybe worth it, especially an inquiry 3. So like a 4-turn inquiry 3 feels worth it to me. I think a general rule of thumb for stuff too, like if I'm upgrading to, an elder acolyte or whatever, I would never really do that. I don't normally spring for elder acolytes, but if I'm going to, I'm thinking in terms of, does it take 3 turns or less for upgrades, specialist upgrades. If it doesn't take 3 turns or less, I either don't want to do it, or if it's a monk or doctor, then I'm going to try and rush it. Yeah, acolytes can be nice orders. There's just a million. There's all, I couldn't. Maybe I'm sleeping on it. That's the weird thing about Old World is everything in the game is useless until you figure out how to use it, and that's so true. And I think for me personally, the quintessential best example of this is orthodoxy. I genuinely think orthodoxy is one of the most powerful laws in this entire game, like hands down. For me, it's not even a contest. It's like top 3 at worst. This is one of the best laws in the game. However, I spent 2 years, and it hasn't changed in like 2 or 3 or 4 years, right? It's just been the exact same for like the last 3 to 4 years. But I spent about 2 or 3 years, including that in my list of one of the worst laws that categorically needs to be buffed, and it's shitty, and no one should ever adopt orthodoxy. So that for me is a perfect example of that journey of thinking something is useless until you figure out how to use it. And that can go for anything. Forts are a great example. You can think forts are useless until you figure out, holy shit, this is saving my ass. Projects are another good one. It's very hard to evaluate projects. I love archives. I love forums, but both archives and forums get pretty bad reps, usually. Hunt is another one, the Hunter project. Very easy to think Hunt is useless until suddenly it's making you the majority of your food in your game. And it's helping you build cataphracts because it exists. And that's what's so fascinating about this game, is because there are tons of mechanics and things in this game that are simultaneously, for lack of a better phrase, useless, but yet at the same time, if you use them correctly, they can literally reshape and define your game. And the fact that both of those things can be true just frankly blows my mind. I don't quite get it, but it's true. It really is true. Going for some chopping up north. Only half chopping. Full chopping where we're going to put this Shrine of Saul. Interesting, like that forward thinking there. And spreading apprentices all around the... I really love this. So this is, honestly, especially for this format, I genuinely think the apprentice officer is arguably the best specialist. We talk about doctors, we talk about, monks and all that stuff, and plenty of good reason to like, apprentices or acolytes for their culture, but I mean, it really just, in this format, this head-to-head format, that's pretty much always going to come down to a battle, right? We see our units staging. I just think you don't get much better than science and better unit production, because the barracks themselves are solid, buildings. But then you fill them all, you fill the barracks with ranges and rangers with officers, and suddenly you have like 25 or 30 training in any city that did that. And you also got yourself an extra 8-ish science. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, 8. And that's awesome. It's really, really great. And if you're doing this little formation thing, you get a couple of extra orders. I don't bother to do the whole flower honeycomb thing. I generally speaking, I just don't give a shit where my citadel ends up. But the diamond, which goes garrison, barracks, stronghold, that effectively makes these 2 barracks worth nearly an extra garrison in terms of orders. It's basically like you have 3 garrisons in the city now rather than just the garrison and stronghold, and that's nice. And then, of course, when you toss in the ranges, you can add them around here somewhere. If I have like wide open space, like someplace, well, this won't be perfect. What's a good example? This one. All right, so this one would be easy to do the perfect formation on. But I don't stress it because the difference between a perfect honeycomb and a non-perfect honeycomb is like 1.1 to 0.2 orders, which, yes, I just got through saying that it does add up, but I think it adds up more in this dynamic rather than the other one. Plus, again, with a citadel, typically you're thinking about law timing, you're thinking about quick 8-strength unit. So more than anything, I just make sure that it gets built as quickly as possible rather than finding the right spot for it. Interesting staging from Carthage here. I'll be very surprised if Mojo tries to push an attack, because we do have Rome gaining more power. From Mojo's perspective, they're similar. And, I mean, he's not building a lot of replacement units. So, I mean, like, this is an aggressive station of this militia. But, I mean, that's a bait, right? It's a militia. That's, like, literally daring Rincewind to come kill it. Like, maybe bring some units forward. So, be curious if Rincewind takes the bait. That'd be hilarious. We have our heir. I like to call this a stealth heir, because this is the heir of the Carthaginian Empire. She is a zealot. She's a general in the field now. So starting next turn, we can use her, which means if we hop on over to Carthage, as soon as our ruler dies or mid-turn, we could abdicate into a zealot. And from the Roman perspective, let's pop back here again, it's very hard if you're just looking at a glance to realize that this is a potential ruler zealot, right? Because there's a zealot there. There is a tactician there. There's a commander there. So not only do you have to be aware that your opponent has a zealot on the throne, you also actually need to make sure you go, hey, who's this guy? Oh, Malchus, okay. Hey, who's this guy? Oh, it's the princess, the heir. I need to be a little tactically aware of that. And even if you do notice that, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's impossible. Not impossible, but it's very difficult to keep remembering that there's a potential zealot that could just come out and enlist your shit out of nowhere. Heroes are another one. Surprise launch offensives are a lot of fun if you can pull them off. And you can do multiple things in one turn. In one duel, I can't remember which order I went. Can't remember if I went zealot into tactician or tactician into zealot. But on the same turn, I both stunned one unit and I enlisted another unit because I used the first ruler's ability first, and then I abdicated to the second, to the heir, and then I triggered the second ability second. So nothing more satisfying than churning out both a stun and an enlist, or abdicating into a launch offensive when your opponent doesn't expect that it's coming. All fun little tricks of the trade that you can do. We have 2 chariots out in the back line. I think this is going to end up being a surprise for Mojo if Mojo does decide to aggress here. And also, I mean, there are some route potentials, but you're not going to be able to do enough damage deep into that, I don't think. My favorite positioning for this stuff, this garrison, I mean, we can't fit it here because of the marsh, But whenever I'm building this stuff, we'll see that we're building this stuff in front of the city. I actually like to put the garrison and everything behind the city, because I want my opponents to come in and attack, generally. I want them to fight in my borders if they can. And I don't want them to be able to pillage or step on my urban tiles. So where we see not a lot of urban out here, I actually try to keep this blank. And I'd build my urban complexes behind the city. That way, when my opponent comes into this territory, I get all this nice cavalry advantage, get all this nice range advantage. No one's getting the urban defense. It does create a tricky situation where, like, you know, your opponent can set up on hills pretty easily with, like, things like onagers and rangers. So it's not a perfect stratagem, but it definitely seems to be. I definitely think it's my preference where I put my barracks and stuff behind the city instead of in front of it. Generally, probably not always, but like when I think about it conceptually, I tend to. I feel like I prefer it that way. 4 turns on combo for the Carthaginians. It looks like we're getting monasticism next turn on Rincewind. And yeah, there's some solid staging here. And this is what's really nice for Rincewind. Is Rincewind has very... Oh, we're attacking! That's wild to me. Did we just get an event? We did. We must have. What battle... Did we get a battlefield event? No, I don't understand. How the hell did this thing just go half health? Oh, it was fortified and countered. Okay. Never mind. It was fortified, and so it did full counter. Love that mechanic. Yeah, this seems like a mistake. I'm not feeling this at all. And you know what's about to happen? We're going to get that exact same thing that I just talked about, where chariots in the back line with a nice road. Rincewind, win or lose this match, gets an award for this road, by the way. He built this, like, as he was expanding, by the way. Like, I don't even think it was fully settled out here, and he was already building this road. So that was pretty incredible to watch. Yeah, but I think what we're going to see is a surprise ambush here. I don't think Mojo is going to be clocking these chariots, which is exactly what you want when you have chariots. It's lovely to have a handful of routing chariot units when your opponent is not aware that you have them, especially when your opponent doesn't have any spears. So, yeah. This could be interesting to watch. Woo! We're going right up with the warrior. That doesn't make any fucking sense to me, but here we are. We're attacking into the woods with a warrior for some reason. Okay. All right. I hate it, but here we are. Maybe we wait. I mean, there's one. You can always send your ruler off to die if you really want her to be dead. Oh, that's the other thing about the opinions. Oh, and we're attacking with shit opinion. This is bad. This is bad, man. I know what this feels like. Oh, yeah. Rome has so much better opinion. This is awful. I've been in this exact same situation. This is a nightmare. There's already like a 10 to 20 point. What on earth is happening? We just did a launch offensive. What on earth is happening? All right, so we killed 2 kills. We've killed a militia, great, and a spearman. Awesome. Let's see how much stuff gets killed next turn. All right, cool. At least we're going to save the elephant, because that, I think, is necessary. And that's it. So, all right, all that for 2 kills. And to you. And Rincewind's wasting no time at all. He's like, all right, time to die. What do we got here? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So this right here is the best possible combo. Speaking of army compositions, I really think you want a shitload of ranged units, and I think you benefit from having a handful of routers around. And again, going back to the army composition, imagine just one spear. Like, if this was a spear, your problems become... They don't evaporate, but they become so much less of a problem. It becomes so much more. Just one spear in the Carthage army right here would become so much more of a puzzle for the Rome to deal with. And I feel like he's going to get a nice cleanup attack here because he does have plenty of ranged units in the region. Although, I mean, this guy's tough. How much damage? This is the other thing about route change. It's very easy to think, oh man, look at this massive route chain, right? Very easy to actually like see this conceptually. But it's harder than I think people realize to pull it off. I don't think we have a spear here. Yeah, there we go. Get that pierce again. Really love to see it. All right. Moving on up. Moving on up. We also have some great techs on offer. We can get forestry. We can get portcullis. I'd love to see a portcullis grab at this stage, to be honest. Just keep securing vision. Keep getting a sense of what your opponent is capable of. You get so much knowledge from portcullis. Forestry also makes sense. I think maybe forestry probably would be the better short-term pick. But long-term, I think getting portcullis online now would be solid. All right, coming up with another chariot. Coming up for another route. All right, so we've came in and we killed a militia and a spear as Carthage. And we have paid an axeman, an elite nomad warrior, so a 6-strength tribal unit that we spent time recruiting or upgrading, and a slinger. So far, Rome has 16 orders left. We're going to have to watch what happens. A hero has been removed from the battlefield for the moment for the Carthaginians. Excuse me. Some interesting choices here. If we can bring down this axe, I think that's worth it. We're going for... Oh, interesting. We're going deep. Okay. Okay. Fine. I think I probably would have tried to take out the axe, but maybe we can just keep killing more shit. Yeah, maybe. Oh, and see, you know what? Our players were similar, right? They were just at that cusp of similar. And this battle has dipped Mojo into weaker, and Rome will have a moment of being made aware of that once he kind of keeps his eyes off the battle, takes his eyes off the battlefield and does a quick assessment. He should be able to spot at some point that Mojo's weaker. Also, if you look at these tooltips, you can even see right here, look, upset family. You know, we're on the Roman perspective right now. You can see upset, you can just look at the units. Upset family. What else? We got anybody else here? Yeah, so that's -5 combat, right? -5% combat. Compared to our happy people, which is +10% combat. So between these two units, that's a 15% combat swing. In fact, who's friendly here? The statesman? Let's look at you then. You're what, 20? No, you're 10. And you're 5. Okay. Yeah, all right. So 10 is as high as the positive one goes. And then the worst one goes to 20, right? If I remember correctly. This is 10 right. Yeah, so if you get furious, this is 10 right now. So statesmen versus patrons, families, between the Romans and the Carthage, is a 20% combat swing. That's basically like having something like Highlander or Sentinel, right? And then this can go up, down even one more. It could become 20 to 10. So that's a 30% combat damage. The politics in the game is crucial to pay attention to. And then in this territory, any champions people are going to get 10% bonus in this territory. So yeah, I don't like this attack here from Mojo. He's going to have to run for the hills, I suspect. And actually, these guys are fucked. These two guys are absolutely fucked. So, yeah. That's, we lost 4 kills. We're going to lose 2 more, probably without taking anything. I mean, we could run in with an elephant, but I think we'd just lose the elephant. And we're getting raided. Big yuck. I have to suspect that Mojo was not expecting chariots. I have to suspect that he wasn't expecting chariots. This scout is completely exposed, by the way. He's going to have to find a place to tuck that in. Well, now that this door just opened up, I'll be curious if Rincewind feels like he wants to press in on this. I don't know, hard to say. It might not be a good idea, but I mean, there's a lot of units in the area. And he does have reinforcements. He does have another chariot come up. And this is where you want to see something like rushing units, right? Hop on over to Rome again. Yeah, rush out a chariot. I would probably rush out a chariot right here. Why not? I'm making 53 cervix per turn. Why not? My opponent doesn't have any spears. There's more units in the area getting brought down to the area. Oh, this city's now getting opened up for us. Yeah, I think I might rush out a chariot here. Not gonna lie, guys. But this is the type of stuff that, these are the type of decisions that I make. You know, I'm always thinking about, all right, well, what's going to end me the game? And to be clear, I don't think a chariot's going to end me the game. But it's kind of one of those decisions that you have to make. Where it's like, well, is the game ending in the next 20 turns or is it ending in the next 40 turns? And I like to try and assume that I can end it earlier if I'm in a strong position. So then it becomes a question of, well, what do I need my civics for? Oh, a chariot sounds tasty. Really press my thumb on the scales here. But of course, long term, that can come back to bite you if you get it wrong, if you get the assessment wrong. If you mass upgrade, if you spend a bunch of resources mass upgrading, or you spam all your resources rushing units, and you can't leverage them correctly, well then your economy was just made less efficient. So swings both ways, and I think knowing when to step on the brakes and press the gas pedal in this game is probably one of the hardest skills to develop. Which is probably one of the reasons why I think some of the players who have been performing the best in this tournament are players who just play steady. They're not trying to rush anybody ever, but they're also not trying to do something like, you know, oh, I'm gonna legendary rush. I'm gonna like play this long-term build. They just play the game and they stay steady. They go, I need units. And then they go, oh, I need more science. And so then that's what they get. And then they say, oh, I need my economy online. And they do that, and they just keep going, and they just keep playing the game. And then eventually they hit that point where they say, hey, everything seems good, so let's do this. Rather than trying to hit a benchmark or a target point or a power spike or something like that. I tend to be more power spike oriented. Which, again, the pitfall of that is if the power spike doesn't work, well, then you basically lose. All right, we're backing off with a chariot. Carthage secured no kills that turn. Full retreat, which should show Rincewind everything he needs to know about the dominant position he's currently in. Yeah. Welcome to the chat, Aaron. We've been talking about that. We talk about how chariots have been making a good showing. And unit compositions in general, how important they are to have a diverse set. Even if your opponent has spears, just maybe spend some time bringing a few chariots into the field, because you never know when you're going to have an opportunity open up. And of course, it forces your opponent to play around things, right? That's the other thing. Because that's like the thing about ocean movement, right? Even if you're not even planning an ocean invasion, just if there were a couple Carthaginian ships right here with anchor, if nothing else, that's going to throw a wrench in your opponent's plans, because they're going to think, what if? right? They're not going to know. So same thing with chariots. If your opponent can see a couple of chariots, well, now your opponent has to factor, even if they have spears, they have to factor their movements, plan around things like flanking, plan around things like that, bonus damage to siege. Yeah, baby. Maybe the best unit composition is mass camels. I kind of have been joking. I actually don't think the camels needed a buff. I just think they needed the spotlight. I think even without the bonus on Arid, they're a solid, phenomenal unit. And I think all the buff did in that recent patch would just make people curious to go try them. And now we've gotten a couple of good games with camels on screen, messing shit up. And yeah, I think it's just a spotlight. I don't think it has anything to actually do with the Arid tile, even though they are awesome on Arid tiles, of course. But even without Nomad, I think they're a fantastic unit. Elephants as well. Elephants have been making a good showing in the tournament as well, I think. Stompy boys are fantastic. And we are going for some more kills here. All right. Okay. I don't think we'll secure this kill. Oh, we could move here. Yeah, no, we can get this. Yeah, we can get this. Do it up. We need exactly 10 damage, and 2 spears will give us exactly 10 damage. I think it's cool that they have their Arid now and they can have their moment, but I'll probably suggest at some point that Mohawk just revert it entirely. Just keep it desert. Personally. But, I mean, whatever. It's fun. Either way, it's fun. That's the thing about the camel, even without, like, I think it's easy to forget that they are essentially an archer. Well, not an archer, they're a slinger. But they're essentially a slinger that also is a spear, you know, that also can't get killed by an axe. Like, they counter everything before it. They counter mounted, they have crazy movement, and they have range, which is just great. So the camel, I've always thought the camel was fantastic. I used to joke that sometimes I would go grab monasticism just for the bonus camel. But yeah, it's cool that they have a spotlight. We did opt for a forestry as Rome. I understand that, and I don't hate it. I probably would have picked forestry or portcullis myself in the same situation. Definitely don't need steel because our opponent doesn't have any spears. So, I mean, we're fine. Hero back on an elephant in the back line. Not looking solid here, though. There's plenty of spears in the Roman area. And we lost at least 2 axes, I think, from that first invasion. We only have 2 more axes nearby. And a third one up there. So, and then as soon as these guys move out of position, they're just going to open up the battlefield. We also have a zealot on... Oh, it's now a robust zealot. So we're getting 39 orders per turn for the Romans compared to about 29, and they're both plus or minus worker turns. So there's a solid 10 order advantage for the Romans as well, which is just not what you want to see when you're fighting Rome, because they have that extra fatigue. There's a zealot on the throne. They have enough civics for an enlist. Strong advantages leading for Rome here. And the great thing about enlist in this situation is you actually have 2 really good targets. The obvious one is the elephant, right? But even an axe is a solid target just because we don't even have steel. My favorite thing to do with enlist is to enlist a unit that I don't even have the technology to be able to build. That's just such a phenomenal ability. One time, I think I've enlisted like 4 or 5 onagers in a fight, and I had never researched machinery, and I went on to win that game with like an onager line, like by doing the onager creep. But the hilarious thing is they weren't even my onagers. So, but once I had it and once I set up and once I was pressing the advantage, it's like, oh, well, I guess I just don't even need to tech machinery because I'm fine. So yeah, it's really exciting to be able to enlist a unit that you can't even build yourself, especially if it's something like Siege. And obviously the Elephant's a really good pick here. We're going to enlist this spear. Do we have the civics? I don't know. I'm assuming. No, we don't. Oh, well, we just spent it. Okay, we do. We just spent it. Great. All right, so we have an enlist here. That's our first spear. So same principle applies here. The Carthaginians cannot build spears, so enlisting a spear, especially when you're dealing with chariots, is a solid play. Your opponent doesn't have axes. I worry that this spear will just be able to get killed pretty handily. Does look like that's on the table here. We can do 5 damage. We can do 9 damage. Come up, do another 16. Yeah, the spear can definitely die instantly. So yeah, I'll be curious to see if it survives, how it holds out, if Rincewind decides to keep pressuring here, what decisions get made. Let's take a look at that power graph, too. Yeah, wow, see? This is just a shame, man, because let's not forget, Mojo started this fight. I fully suspect that Rincewind would have just chilled for a little bit, and both players could have built up. Mojo already made a very strong tactical play, securing the central city. Basically nothing Rincewind could do about it. I'm sure that Rincewind was content to just kind of sit on his fort with his fortified spear and just chill out for a moment. And I definitely think the advantages in combat lean towards the defender. So Carthage could have set himself up some decent defense to try and deter Rome from instigating early aggression, and maybe waited out combo 2 turns from that, waited out the free ballista. You know, imagine having a ballista right now. You could just chunk this whole line and then come in with an elephant to rout. So I feel like this is a little bit too aggressive, too early on Mojo's part, with no real clear advantage of how he would actually going to take the fight to Rome in this situation. And yeah, this is just a blunder here. This is just 2 turns worth of fighting, and that is just nosedive worth of power. Unfortunate. Unfortunate. And also, it's like we should have been waiting for more elephants. In the time it takes us to get the ballista, we would have had more elephants. We could have had more slingers. And now we kind of put ourselves on that back foot again. We're staring at this strong Roman army right on our border once again, same city, Hippo Regius, and we're back to not being able to develop economically, and we have to have every queue building a unit, which is just a bummer. We want to be building specialists, science workers, things like that, dealing with these rebels. So I really think after securing this central site, which was a really cool play to watch, I think it would have been in Mojo's best interest to just chill and kind of like hope that Rome didn't notice him anytime soon while he just built up. All right, back to Rome here, back to Rincewind. 2 turns on forestry. Solid luxury economy, by the way, with 2 gems, 1 salt, 3 literature, another gem available. And let's not forget, our patrons like gems, so those are pretty handy. Let's see if he's doing the micro that I want. No, not quite. Not quite, but that's okay. All right. So we do have the civics for an enlist and another zealot on the throne for the Romans. Zealot versus zealot at this stage. And how are we going to do this? All right, we're going to poke it. Wait, did we just make it so we can't kill it? Oh, we're going to have to put a slinger on this tile with the horses. That's the only way we're going to be able to do that. Yep, okay. So move up, sling it out. We also have a doorway open to deal with some of these axes. I think that's actually worth it. I think that's worth it. Don't think we should make the mistake of trying to send the zealot in now. Maybe suicide this spear to reduce this health. There's another thing. Again, fighting a battle is as much about choosing which units to lose as it is choosing which units to kill. And personally, again, I don't think I'm necessarily the strongest tactician here. But even this unit that I know would die, I have no problem tossing it up here and putting 8 damage on the elephant, opening me up to an enlist of it next turn if I want it. And of course, if this were securing me a kill, then I definitely would have no problem doing that. I don't mind trading a kill for a kill, especially if it's a better unit. 29 orders left with 44. Yes, love this. We're coming in to do some damage up north. I don't hate that at all. I think what could be interesting here, maybe position yourself. This is an idea I like. I like this idea. All right, so what I think, one thing that would be really cool here is put one of these units somewhere around here that establishes the zone of control. And then, so where would this work? Where would this work? Let me figure this out. Maybe right here. Right? And then bring the scout and stand it next to the unit to reduce the number of attacks that unit can actually get hit by. So it can't get swamped on. Ha! No pun intended. That's funny. That's always fun to do. Come in with a spear as well. Yeah, honestly, I think you could, because then what you do is you cut off these units entirely. Nice to see this as well. I think we're going to be seeing some dead axes. Yeah, I think this could be definitive. I think we could have a definitive session in this game, and much to my surprise, dear Mojo could find himself out of this year's tournament. And we did enlist the axe. Like I said, I don't hate that. I don't hate that. What's the promotion on this bad boy, too? Shield bearer, not too bad. Most of the units, I mean, I guess that's not true. But there are a handful of slingers. That's another thing to watch out for with enlists. If you could get yourself something like a Highlander in this battle. This guy has Highlander and Fierce. So, ooh, yeah, this would be a sweet unit to enlist in this conflict. Always like to watch out for the promotions. But we're making 100 civics per turn in Rome. So effectively, we can enlist every 4 turns, and we already have enough to enlist next turn. Yeah, this is not looking great. Let's take a look. Still weaker for Rome. 2 spears back to back, so it's going to be hard to get in here and do a fancy route chain, although I guess, I mean, maybe that would be tricky, though. Alright, so no, the axe can get the kill. But then we need more damage. We don't have enough range damage, right? 5. Alright, so yeah, we could get a kill on these 2 units. And maybe... But I mean, yeah, no, I mean, this is not looking great. So I guess, so what do you do in a situation like this, right? In my opinion, I think Mojo loses this fight. Like, I don't think he wins this fight. So what do you do in this situation? Is this surrender? Do you just call it quits? Possibly. I've certainly seen games. I've been on the Roman side of this equation quite a bit. I often joke that you technically don't need to beat the game, you just need to beat the player. And that's a comment on morale. If you can get if you can posture enough that your opponent is like, oh shit, I can't win this fight, and then they surrender, well then, that's still a win, whether you could have actually beat them or not. But yeah, so if you're in this situation and it looks like you're not winning, you can't win this fight, what do you do? In my opinion, I think sometimes you might need to just retreat. I don't think you'd want to do that here, though, because these choke points are so definitive. That's the other aspect of making me feel like this could be a definitive loss here. Because even if Mojo can retreat and kind of like regroup himself, I mean, this is all hills. This is all hills. Rome would surely get both of these cities. And then the entirety of the Roman Empire is locked behind the shield wall. And that is a tall ask to be able to aggress from this situation with a city directly in front of a choke point. To say nothing of this nightmare up here. It's just unfortunate. Just a little too late. I feel like if Carthage, or a little too soon, rather. I feel like if Carthage had archers and a ballista in this conflict, it'd be a lot trickier for Rome to puzzle into. And that's always the thing in Old World, right? It feels like somehow you manage to attack simultaneously too early and too late at all the time. Or that seems to be the answer in so many situations. It's one or the other. Excuse me. Either go too soon, or you're building up and you think, oh yeah, I got this, but then you forget something crucial. Or you don't take your advantage and turn it into a larger advantage. I suppose that could be the other motivating factor behind Mojo's move here. Maybe it was a concern that if he just let Rome build up, that advantage would go crazier. That advantage for Rome would widen. Solid training in the Carthaginian Empire. We need to get Zoroastrianism in Caralis so we can rush out African elephants. What's the status on that? Do we have a disciple anywhere? No. Yeah, we really need Zoroastrian to spread to Caralis. We're going on a chopping spree in the north. Love to see that. Well, I mean, there has been a question of Carthaginian power in this game, you know? In this tournament, rather. Because Carthage has been a prominent pick, and they've had some pretty crazy games. But I think champ nations do position themselves as solid counters. Rome has had, I think, probably the better games consistently against Carthage. But even Mojo's previous game, where he played as Carthage, he lost that. Sorry, he played as Assyria into Carthage, and he did lose that game. But he played a phenomenal game. It was not an easy win for Oro at all. So that's something to think about. Of course, excuse me. And of course, Aaron sent me packing in my game. He was Assyria. I was Carthage. So champ nations do quite well. Assyria is such a beast anyway, because they have both champions and hunters, and I mean, hunters is just the best defensive family in my opinion. Very, very difficult to attack into a hunter's family city. Sentinel slingers and archers are absolutely no joke. All right, are we going to see a forced march enlist here? We don't even need to force march. And there it is. Wow. Yeah. Ouch. Now let's see the likelihood of killing this unit. Alright, so that's 8. It would be a disarm, so I'm going to estimate that this goes up to 8 as well. So we're at 16. That probably goes to 4. Yeah, so we can kill the elephant next turn if we want. As long as this shit doesn't die. But it looks like this shit's gonna die, so never mind. Never mind. That would be 8. I would call it 6. Call it 4, so we're at 18, maybe? Maybe? No, I think this might be it, fellas. It's not spread there, my brother. Mojo is asking in the chat, why can't I rush with training in Carolus, even though I have a state religion? I do not believe that Mojo will be able to... Sorry, Rincewind will be able to answer that question if he can't see Carolus, but he might be able to. But the answer to that question is he does not have Zoroastrianism inside the city. You need to have the religion that is the state religion in the city if you want to use fancy tricks like orthodoxy or zealot rushing. Let's see if he's asking on Discord, because I can answer that question. Do-do-do. No, he's not. But if he does, I can give him an answer. You do not have your state religion in the city. Very easy to forget, though, in fairness, I'm absolutely not giving him any shit over that. Those little nuances are incredibly easy to forget. And in all types of things, like the amount of times I've nailed my 7-law timing, I got all the text I needed, I adopted all 7 laws, and I'm like, all right, let's do this! And then I realized I don't have a single strong city in my empire is infuriating. So, I mean, you can always forget a step in certain processes, and I think rushing with zealot training in particular, because it's not always accessible to you, right? Not something you can always shoot for. I think it'd been easy to forget that little bullet point. I suspect Mojo must be much weaker at this point, right? No, not quite. Getting there, though. And this rebel situation's... not rebel, these ragers. Although, no, one of these is a rebel. Awful. Right, because the political situation in Carthage was shit. And it's not getting much better. Yeah, shit. The same thing happened to me. I launched an attack against somebody, and normally this is the panel that I keep active in my when I'm playing all the time, the family one, because personally I just think it's the most important. But for whatever reason in my game, it wasn't active at the moment for like a few turns. And then, dude, attacking into somebody who has pleased and friendly units when you have everybody being pissed off at you is just a freaking disaster waiting to happen. And I say that from experience. And don't forget, you can look at this opinion. Like, you can look at the tooltip. So you can always check your opponent. You're looking for either a happy face or a smile face. Or a sad face, right? So I know that champions... This tooltip lets me know that champions in Rome are upset with... well, no, they're just upset, you know, that their political opinion. And then I know that the statesman family is pleased. You know, if I find maybe anybody else lying around. And I know that, you know, the patron's family in Rome is pleased. And I would know this even as Carthage, even as not an observer. You know, this information is right here on the tooltip for you. There's lots of fun little shit buried in these tooltips that can give you an edge if you can think to check them. And of course, with the timer in a network game, playing live, it's very difficult to have all those things, you know, working perfectly. This is, you know, a real fun aspect of these network games is that you're exposed to making mistakes, you know. Of course, you're never going to play flawlessly, but I think part of the test here in this competitive format is, you know, you don't have that undo, right? You don't have an hour to make your decision. Even if you were in a cloud game without undo, you can't kind of look at the board state and just digest it all night. No, you have a couple minutes to plan an attack, and hopefully it goes well. And then if it doesn't, then you need to adapt, you know, and that's part of the skill being expressed here in this type of tournament. Can you adapt? Can you adjust? Can you factor? How many variables can you factor in the time that you have to make the correct decision? And every one of us make mistakes. I don't care how good at this game you are. It's impossible to play a flawless game of Old World. Certainly in a network game without Undo, in my opinion. It's just not going to happen. We will see even the finalists in this tournament will spectate, and it will be a fun, exciting, very well-played game. But both players in that tournament, I fully expect, will make a handful of mistakes back and forth that will ultimately add up and contribute to a win or a loss. But that's what makes it fun, right? That's what makes it cool. I feel like if everybody played perfectly, it would just be boring, to be honest. And I think that's a realization I've come specifically through watching Old World in network tournaments. In network play without Undo. I've gone on this rant before, but I've literally just forgotten how essential it becomes to, not essential, how great it is to the overall experience to be able to make mistakes. I think playing in single player specifically with Undo and the habits at Old World, it's nice to have that. It's nice to be like, oh, whoops, shit. A misclick is probably the most annoying mistake, though, admittedly, because it's like I was trying to do the correct thing, but my mouse was like half an inch, half a centimeter to the wrong tile, and now I just ruined my entire plan. Misclicks are definitely the worst, but mistakes are fun. All right, Rincewind has never used a Carthage elephant before, ladies and gentlemen. So he's in for a treat. He has his very first African Stompy boy. Let's see what he does. Let's see if he gets a window of opportunity to have some fun stomping around the map. They certainly are the stompiest of boys. They stomp not once, not twice. They keep on stomping. Oh, do we have a full rebellion? What just happened? I think we just got a full rebellion. Youch, if that's true. Rival for succession. I have to imagine that these guys are none too... It's minus 80, rival for succession. Let's take a look here. Let's take a... No. Patriotic fervor. Seizes the throne, last of her line. What about this person? Are you part of a notable event? Huh, no. Interesting. But I'm pretty sure I just saw a rebel here. Yeah, it's riders. This must have been a rebellion. They're the rebel in every single rider city. That is nightmarish. That is nightmarish. That is this is the last possible opportunity and moment you would ever want rebels in every single city. Oh, wait a minute. This doesn't seem right. We have an entirely new line here. The zealot died. Oh, it's because we died without an heir. Did we die without an heir? That's what happened. Oh my god, that's brutal. I think we died without an heir. And when you die without an heir, you get an event. There's one or two different events that because before, if you died without an heir, you used to lose the game, right? But they changed it like a year or two ago, where now you no longer lose the game, but instead you do get an unhappy event where your cities, which basically I think one of the cities, so okay, so I think what happens here, basically, when you die without an heir, what happens is one of the oligarchs, I think, specifically takes over the throne. And then how it pans out is, depending on the event, I think there's more than one. There's another family that gets upset by this, and that's what I think this rival for the throne is. Rival for succession, yeah. Yeah. And so it was the Barcids who wanted to be on the throne, but I don't think there's not like a choice. You can't choose which one. Basically, the event kind of plays out on its own, where one of the guys takes the throne, and one of the other two families is pissed off about it, and that family generates a little bit of rebels. And I think it can be different. Sometimes I think it's like 3 or 4 rebels in just one city, or like just your capital. I think that's one event. Like your capital gets hit with like 3 or 4 rebels. And then I think the other version of the event is every city of the dissenting family generates a rebel. I think there's more than one. I forget because it doesn't happen to me all that often. But yeah, so this was a direct result of dying without an heir. Bummer, man. Politics, man. The political crisis in Carthage expands, leading to their doom. Because this is also going to mess with their build queues now, too. And their potential ability to rush as damage starts piling up. So then the other thing I think that happened here, if I remember correctly, the Zealot ruler, actually we can take a look. I think my favorite thing happened. The final message. We'll have to take a look at this. Because with Mojo said something like, my ruler died on your turn, talking to Rincewind. So that leads me to believe that the ruler being on this elephant when he was killed triggered one of the ruler death events. So that's another badass thing. That's my favorite thing that can happen. I love, it's super rare. It doesn't happen all the time, but one of the risks of having like your general front lining like this, right, is that they can potentially die in combat. There's like a 5% chance or something silly where if the unit that your ruler is on dies, there's like 2 or 3 events that can trigger different versions of a potential death event. One of them's really cool because you can save yourself, but if you want, depending on, you might actually want to make that decision, you can actually choose to die in the field and you get 10 legitimacy. And I actually like that event because if it does fire, it's kind of like gives you an opportunity in certain circumstances to basically abdicate for free. So maybe you have, like, back when Carthage had that old hero on the throne, right? That could have been a great example. She was like 77 years old. So you charge her off, and he did. He charged her off in a battle, and she died in battle. The unit did. So if that event fired there, that could be a great opportunity to be like, oh, well, hey, I want the Zealot on the throne anyway. She's younger. So yeah, I'll just die in the field, and I'll get an extra 10 legitimacy. I won't have to spend anything. So, in an odd way, sometimes those events can actually be helpful. Albeit a little bit niche. But yeah, no, in this situation, I think the Zealot ruler bit the bullet in the battlefield here. Really, really cool to see. And yeah, and then the outcome of that was a secession crisis. So that was like a double whammy of the kind of bad outcomes you could get from that situation. Because not only did the ruler die in the field, since she died without an heir, that actually spawned rebels. So interesting. Really cool. And that's just gonna... We're building a bireme here. We're building... not a lot of military in Rome, actually. We're doing economic development, which is kind of great, too, because we're winning this battle. We could potentially even win off of this situation, I would say. And if we have to pause, reassess, heal up, take stock... At least the economic aspect of our game hasn't slowed down at all. So that's nice. In fact, let's take a look at that science. Science is now 53 to 37. It's cool to see. I'm curious how Mojo reacts here. Ambition to found a religion. Ambition to enact dualism. Or we can get some XP. We do have a builder. What's something fun we could do with a builder in this situation? Anything Okay, Mojo concedes. Awesome counterattack, indeed. Both of our players played very well, and here we go. Oh my goodness, Mojo being eliminated from the tournament, breaking my heart. Strong player. I've always wanted to watch him play, and he will be making his exit. So I'll see if I can get these fellas onto Discord for a post-game chat. But that is the end of this game. I'm going to see if I can save the game once we have an official surrender here. Hop into the Hanging Gardens. What do we got here? Wow. Really, really great match. Let's see if they want to join the call. And... oh, misclick with the launch offensive. That's a bummer. All right. Looks like Spider going to take a couple minutes. And I don't know if Mojo will be joining us. But that's all right. So yeah, let's take a look at some stats here while we're waiting around. Military units produced. 31 military units produced on Rome. 31 military units produced on Rome. To 16 by Carthage. Wild. Workers were more or less similar. Specialists were more or less similar. Population, more or less similar. Improvements, more or less similar. So honestly, by all metrics, exactly the same technologies, 15 and 15. And we've already gone over the fact that their science is relatively the same. Getting an edge here for the Romans in terms of income, but Mojo has the larger investment in the tree still at this point. So really this came down to military output, and it came down to the tactics. I think that invasion here. Oh, Mojo, welcome to the call. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm good. I was very enjoying this game, despite of losing, but that's not the main course of play.
Yeah, it was a very exciting match. I was lucky enough to catch the first half, even though I didn't cast it, but I caught about half of the first half when Rincewind tried to take Hippo Regis, and I think you did. What I find amazing about watching you play is you don't seem to flinch whenever you seem to be in trouble. You seem to have a very steady reaction to anybody attacking you or invading you, and you just kind of build units, do what you need to do, and there's been numerous situations watching you play in this tournament where you have defended attacks that my initial reaction was like, oh, he's gonna lose this city or whatever, and then you don't. So I'm curious, like, what's your tactical thinking there? Like, are you ever nervous in conflict, or you playing your own game and doing what you got to do?
Maybe it's more the latter, but since I'm not playing so much recently, I need to balance out my tactical weaknesses, and it's fun also to try to make something out of a bad situation that I came in because of the tactical weaknesses. And I was very happy to get the central city up north.
Yeah.
But yeah, the final attack was for sure a mistake and not heading for phalanx, being greedy for the bowman. Yeah.
I imagine you probably didn't anticipate the fact that he might have had chariots, huh?
Yes, but I mean, it was almost for sure that he has some, but that was the reason I wasn't thinking about it. And I didn't see them. I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
So it was a nice counter attack from him.
Yeah. That grab of the middle city site was awesome because I talked about that for a good couple of minutes, and I was wondering if that was just going to be a stalemate because neither of you guys were going to be brave enough to like walk into all that marshland territory. And then pretty much as I finished talking about it, there you went. You just secure you, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And because the thing that I had missed was I didn't realize you were still at truce with the tribe that was there, so that allowed you to step in there without zone of control, right? And
Yes.
yeah, so that was awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, I was planning for that very carefully. That was the most fun part of this session today for me.
Well, I think it was very well executed. Rincewind, thanks for joining the call. Congratulations, buddy. How are you feeling?
Hello. Is my audio good?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I wasn't expecting to win, but I thought I had a good chance, and yeah, so it's good.
Yeah,
You did a great job. The counter attack was really great and well executed. You used every chance to kill the units, to hunt them down. Was cool to watch.
I think I just joined the chat. I think you were saying you didn't see the chariots, right?
Yes, I should have known it that you have some, but yeah, didn't think of it.
Yeah, it would have been difficult. Like there weren't any good fights nearby. I did pay attention that like an idle scout wouldn't notice the chariots there. Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
It was like there were quite a few things that had to come together for that, right? Because I needed I got them kind of last minute, so I had to rush them out. So I needed the developing culture. The fact that it was a patron city with the horses was really critical for that. And then I just got my Jewish disciples there just in time, like 1 or 2 turns before I started rushing them out. So the timing was quite tight.
Yeah, you had very good timing. I had very bad timing.
Speaking of which, by the way, Mojo, the reason why you couldn't rush out of Carolus was because your state religion isn't in the city.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, very easy to miss, but yeah, the paganism there, but not Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, very clear. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I was just looking at this now. One of the things that also came out to the Roman advantage, and we've been seeing this a lot in fights, whether it's one-sided or not in terms of who had the military advantage, is Rome had a significant order advantage for like the last several turns, like 20 or 30 turns, pretty solid order advantage. So I have to admit, Mojo, considering what I consider to be what seems like more of a steady style from you, I was surprised to see you attack because I feel like you could have been after taking that central city, I feel like you were in a good spot to kind of hang back and build up. Because outside of orders, if we look at all the other stats in the game, things like specialists, things like improvement count, things like technology discovered, overall science invested in the tree, even though Rome currently has the better science rate, you guys are literally neck and neck in pretty much every stat. The only advantage Rome has at the moment is if we look at military units produced, Rome has 31 to Carthage's 16, and then of course the order laps, right? So I feel like if Mojo just kind of hung back and gave himself a strong 20 or some odd turns of development, it could have been a very different game.
Yeah, totally. I was totally wrong strategic decision. I hadn't my impulses under control, and I just wanted to attack. But for sure, that was my plan initially: taking the northern city, and then securing the choke points, hanging back, and trying to build up the economy. But then I had one bad minute where I thought it's a good idea to to move in, and that decided the game for sure.
Hard not to make a play when you have a zealot on the throne, I think. I feel like I got baited into that in one of my games as well. It's like,
yes.
They're so strong, and they're like you get all that fatigue, and you had your unique unit, you had the stompy boys with the route. It's hard to not be like, I can kill 5 things in one run.
Exactly my thinking, Sion.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might have worked if I didn't have the chariots, because that's what really swung it, I think.
Well, then the other
Maybe,
disadvantage, I think, with politics, Rome has a couple of pleased and friendly families, and political situation in Carthage wasn't that great for the last several turns either. So that's
Yes.
going to contribute to a combat bonus for both sides.
Yeah, and my Zealot leader dying was also not very helpful, but I think that was not any more decisive at the end, eventually.
Yeah.
I was thinking this is going to be a stalemate, and the only way to attack, I was starting to build biremes because I thought it's going to get so defensive in the middle. I'd have to try and launch a surprise attack to like Sabrata or something. I calculated, I think I'd need 2 biremes to get there.
Yeah, one thing I also noticed, this wasn't a wonder-heavy game. We finally have the first wonder getting started only just a few turns ago, 5 or 6 turns ago. It was a museum from Rome. Any reason that neither of you eyeballed something like the pyramids or maybe the Ishtar? Ishtar probably would have been great for you, Rincewind, because you kind of gobbled up a bunch of the map early on. But I guess you were oriented, maybe, were you trying to go specifically for a rush strategy? Is that the idea? Because you also built that amazing road, pretty much as you were expanding out towards Carthage. That you got huge compliments for your roading, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was proud of that road. It did set me back on my economy a bit, but it was worth it. But yeah, I mean, the Ishtar Gate I didn't think I need because of all my forward patron cities, right? I figured they'd get to developing. Also, I saw that my science and laws were kind of slow, so that my culture was going to be ahead of my my ability to get my UUs anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't feel that I had the I saw that he was. I wasn't specifically planning to rush, but I saw that he was weaker than much weaker, and just like by default against Carthage, I'm going to be focusing military at the start of the game anyway. So I just wanted to get to the middle and see where things stood, and after that, kind of figure out what would be the situation for the long term.
Well, it's also interesting because I feel like there's a kind of like a lesson learned from your multiplayer experience, right? Because kind of after, even though very different players, very different games, right? But after your first game with Alcaris, which was the same matchup, Rome versus Carthage, with your opponent tanking Carthage, you kind of did receive that feedback of like, hey, you could have ended the game early. like Alcaris, everybody, both the spectators and even Alcaris himself was all like, "Oh man, yeah, you had a window to end this game at one point." So that's interesting to see you kind of step on the gas a little bit here and try to leverage an early advantage. And I was saying before you hopped on the call, it was actually really impressive watching Mojo defend that initial assault because everybody in chat watching at the time thought Rincewind was going to take Hippo Regis the first time, and then he just didn't. So, I mean, Mojo, you definitely played very well tactically in some of the fights in this game. It's just, I think the only blunder you really made was that aggression in the last 5 or 10 turns kind of was a little unwarranted, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm going to resign so that I can see the stats because I haven't had a chance to look at them yet.
Yeah, I could. I should surrender. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you click
surrender, yeah.
I was going to say I heard this. Something weird happens if the it depends whether the host surrenders or the not host surrenders.
All right, we have a surrender here. It looks like, by the way, let me save the match.
Yeah, I just surrendered.
There we
and
go.
You hosted the game, as far as I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of worried that you might be ahead of me in science, and so I really focused on getting that museum up as soon as I thought it was a stalemate.
Yeah, and he was ahead for most of the game, but you caught up quite nicely eventually towards the end there. But even with like being ahead since turn 54-ish, if you look at the total science in the tech tree, Carthage still has over 100 extra science in the tech tree, so you're kind of just getting to the point of closing that deficit. So yeah, I think grabbing Museum was a good grab.
Definitely, yeah. Maybe that also pushed me a bit into the aggression, the attack. Maybe I was thinking I couldn't catch up in the Wanderer race then at the end, and yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's tricky about the game. It's always difficult to know exactly what's going on in your opponent's kingdom unless you have like complete eyes on them, and you know, so
it's
hard.
the beauty of the game, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's so great trying to intuit what's going on, and then yeah, the misplays it can lead to, like misjudging the situation. You know, it happens to all of us, right? Yeah. All right. Well, I don't see any questions from the chat. I appreciate you both very much for participating in the game. Thanks for letting us watch. Mojo, it's been an absolute treat and pleasure watching you play. We should play a game sometime over cloud or something, or network if you're ever up to playing a network game just outside of the tournament. So sad to see you go because this is an elimination match. So everybody watching, this will be Mojo's final match of the tournament. So again, thanks for joining in, and Rincewind, congratulations. You're going to move up, and I believe you fight Marauder next, and who knows?
Marauder it is, yeah. Good luck with him.
Yeah, good luck.
I'm looking forward to it.
And who knows,
Yeah,
maybe after that,
Sion next.
I'll be able to bump into you.
I hope so. We'll see.
All right, guys, thanks again for joining in.
Bye-bye.
You have a good time.
All right, take care now. I'm going to hop out of this. All right, everybody, that is the tournament match. Mojo versus Rincewind. We have a victory for Rincewind. We have a victory for Rome. And yeah, they were pretty much neck and neck in all metrics, with Rome finally taking a lead on the science and having a pretty solid order lead for most of the game. But apart from the orders and apart from the military units produced here, which we can see pretty much nearly twice as many military units produced by Rome, all other metrics were more or less the same. So it's very interesting to think about like the what if, right? But no, Rincewind played a strong game, took advantage of an opportunity when it presented itself, and was able to seal the deal. So thank you all for watching and participating in the chat. If you're watching live after the fact, please leave a like, subscribe, or a comment for our players to read on YouTube, or hop on the Discord to join the conversation. I'm Siontific, and this has been another game in the Old World Community Tournament. Thanks for watching.